Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. You're listening to PHLY Flyers. That's right, PHLY. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. With me, as always, Philadelphia's #1 Flyers beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor.
I am almost ready for the start of training camp. It's going to start, I think it's 8:30 is when Torts begins to send these guys through the death run on the ice. I'll be there for it.
I can't wait. I really can't wait. It's been a long time coming. It feels like the Flyers season has been over quite a while. No playoffs yet again. And here we are on the eve of training camp, and today's show is going to be a lot about the roster battles we are going to see coming into this training camp, which I guess unofficially kicked off today. They did like the pictures and stuff, and they had their physicals. But tomorrow begins the on-ice work, the coaching staff, the players. I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited for the start of this season, not because I have high expectations of any kind.
Please don't.
No, if you have high expectations out there, lower them. You're only going to disappoint yourself. That's really, it's not bright to really believe in this team, but there are certain things about this team that I am excited to see. First and foremost, we're going to talk about roster locks, like Sean Couturier coming back. I'm just happy for the dude. Same with Cam Atkinson. But I did have a little quick hit to start the show off before we get into these roster locks today, Charlie.
Okay.
We've spent...
I wonder what it's about. Maybe your favorite topic to use to troll me.
We've spent time on previous iterations of this show, Broad Street Hockey, saying perhaps the captaincy a bit overrated. Like, the reason the Flyers don't win is because Drew's a bad captain. It's like, well, the reason the Flyers don't win is because Claude Giroux is nobody to pass to, and there's no defense or goalies.
Yeah, they have like two really good players, and then 5 players that are the next level, and the rest of the roster is garbage.
And that's pretty much it. But I feel like it's maybe not becoming underrated, but I'm just seeing like there were a couple of days ago 8 teams that lacked a captain heading into this season. Of course, we talked on, the last show about Braden Shen becoming the Blues captain, and today I think Brad Marchand gets named the successor to Bergeron, yes. So he is now Boston's captain. 6 teams remaining without anyone wearing a C. It's the Ducks, Coyotes, Flames, Blackhawks, Kraken, and the Flyers. Flyers going into a second straight year without anyone wearing a letter, and I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world for this team. But I do like that teams are, especially this one, like after a legendary captain, whatever you believe of Claude Giroux and his tenure, I really can't put a lot of blame on that man because he's one of the most competitive people. If you covered him like Charlie did every single day, I mean, the man is ridiculously competitive. There is a reason his golf club exploded that one year, resulting in him having the hand injury. Maybe he did deal with some immaturity earlier in his career, but one of the best Flyers of all time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
History books will say how great he was. After a captain like that, a long-tenured, I don't want to just slap it on anyone. There was the year, and they probably needed to, like Jason Smith was there to be the dad, and he was captain for 1 year, and then it was like, okay, time for Richards to take over. It's like, probably could have used someone a little longer wearing that. Because it does matter, as much as I think fans, like, we shouldn't care as much, it does matter to the players. It does matter out there, and that's one of the responsibilities is talking to the officials. I always want a superstar wearing it because then he has the relationship with the officials.
Didn't work for Drew, though.
No, but it never worked for G because he never got superstar calls, which was insane. But anyway, like in my head, that's how I think of it. Like the Blackhawks don't have one. I wouldn't slap it on anyone until you decide, okay, Bedard's ready for it. Like that's the kind of situation I think the Flyers are in too. Maybe the next captain's on the roster right now. Maybe not. But I think like we're starting to underrate like that just because of how much it matters to the players.
I had a conversation with Kevin Hayes about it. I want to say it was I think it was the beginning of last year. And basically what Hayes told me, I did a story on it back when I was with The Athletic, and he basically said that the captaincy is both underrated and overrated. It's overrated by you guys.
Properly rated.
Because you guys act like the captain has this magical power to make the team better than it actually is, and that everything is on the captain. And in that way, it's overrated because when it comes down to it, the quality of the team is the quality of the team. Maybe a good leader can squeeze a little bit more out or prevent a spiral from completely going out of control. But for the most part, good teams are good, bad teams are bad, regardless of who the captain is. But he said it's underrated, as you implied, in the sense that the players really care. It's a big time honor.
Like if you earn that C, you feel like you accomplished something.
Yes.
Like not lifting the cup, but like a personal check mark. Like the organization and your teammates, the coaches, they all believe you to be worthy.
Well, and especially, maybe it doesn't matter as much, and it still obviously matters. It's still an honor. But one of those teams you mentioned was the Seattle Kraken. Maybe it doesn't matter as much to get named the captain of the Seattle Kraken. They're a brand new team. It doesn't really have that weight. But if you get named the captain of the Philadelphia Flyers, that's a big deal. We're talking about a prestige franchise in the league. And if you're one of the people who got to wear the C for the Flyers, a team that even casual hockey fans know in a way that they don't know the Kraken or even like the Flames or the Coyotes. Like people know the Flyers, and it's a big deal to be named captain of the Flyers, which is why players very much want that honor. It's what it means to them. It's what it means in the room. It's what it means from a prestige standpoint around the league that you are the captain. So in that way, it matters. It just isn't this magical thing where a captain can just look at a guy and make him play better.
Yeah, like Connor McDavid basically took the Tortorella role this year, and he threatened everyone. Like that's a captain move. But also, once the season starts, the half the game he's not on the ice, he can't make the other guys score.
Yeah,
you know, like there are things you can do as a leader. But like I do like the tack that because. What was it? It was Mark Stone. Vegas didn't have one, and then they were finally, okay, now we have a guy worthy of the C. We're going to slap it on him.
Right.
They didn't just, okay, first year we have to have a captain. They didn't do that. And Seattle doing the same thing. I appreciate that. They're taking it seriously from that perspective. But yeah, the Flyers lost because Giroux's a bad captain. Like, yeah, Steve Mason let in a goal from center ice, though. Like, maybe that had something more to do with it.
Could have been the reason, maybe.
Like, the Caps have, like, 4 guys going to the Hall of Fame. Flyers have like maybe one.
Yeah.
There's nothing. So yeah, I get the overrated and underrated, but it's just something I was thinking about today as I'm reading like Brad Marchand say, you don't understand how much this means to me.
Well, especially for him coming after Chara and then Bergeron.
And like, yes, the succession there is legendary dudes who he lifted the cup with.
Yeah.
Like that's a big deal.
Exactly.
But we've just, the drama surrounding the C. And this is the last time we'll actually talk about it for a while, Charlie.
I do not believe that even for a second.
Have an actual conversation about it. Like, we've seen in our lifetime what that thing means. It getting ripped off of Lindros, being given to Desjardins. Desjardins eventually going, yeah, Primo's the captain, so he should wear it. And then like trying to find someone after that had been until Giroux. Like, how the hell do we sort this out?
Yeah.
Finally, they found G, and now
now they need to find another one.
I like that. All right, so let's get to the camp battles, everything that's going to transpire over the next few weeks, the preseason and leading up to the opener in Columbus next month. I want to start with the lineup blocks because these are the guys we can kind of just go, all right, pencil them in. And for me, the forwards, and we both kind of agreed on this. Couturier, Konechny, Farabee, Cates, Atkinson, Tippett, Frost, Lawton, Hathaway, Delorier. They're making the team, and we have a nice little graphic for this here as well.
This will be for the first roster battle. We'll get into this later in the show. But yeah, I would say that if you're looking at this, what is that? I'm just doing a quick count here. Is that 10 or 11 guys?
10 guys.
10 guys who we see as essentially roster locks.
12 play, but these guys are, whether they play or not, they're making the team.
Making the team. Yeah, you could envision a scenario where, say, and we'll talk about this a little later, where, say, Nick Delorier or Garnet Hathaway isn't in the lineup, but I don't envision a scenario where either one of them isn't on the team.
Can you envision a scenario where both aren't in the lineup?
Not both, but one maybe.
Yeah, okay. Because they like the way Hathaway plays. They signed him for a reason.
He's a good player.
He's a good player.
Hathaway is a legitimately good fourth liner.
His signing here, it's the one I understood the least. We talked about it. But he's like a good player. Come trade deadline, I'll understand it when they get something for him. But at the whole...
I don't know if they will.
The whole playing him 50 to 60 games before that... That's what I don't really...
He's a culture guy, clearly. Yeah. He's a guy that people like Jonesy and Briere looked at and said, he plays like a flyer. I want him on our team. That was the thought process, I think.
While these 10 guys are locks to make it, role to be determined. The first one I have a question about is the first guy I named, Sean Couturier. Is the expectation, because we keep hearing, oh, yeah, he was probably ready to go at the end of last season. And we were just like, dude, what's the point? Please, no. We're not going to let you do this to yourself. We got a whole year next year and like 7 more years on your contract.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Is he going to be full go 1C right away? Like, are we expecting Selke 1C Couturier?
Well, I don't know if we're expecting Selke 1C Couturier because I don't know if that guy even exists anymore.
Usage by the team, and I guess it's a tough. Like, we have to see what he looks like in training camp and in the preseason games. But does he step in right away and he's 22 minutes a night?
I think so. They'll cut his minutes a bit, especially because Noah Cates showed that he can hold up in tough minutes. So he might not get all of the tough shifts, but that might honestly be just as much about the fact that they're still trying to develop Noah Cates as it is that they're trying to shield Couturier. I think they're looking at it as Sean Couturier has now been healthy. Really, he's been cleared since last spring. He has an entire summer. He's going to be going through an entire camp. He's going to be going through preseason. I think they're going to look at it as if he makes it through preseason and training camp fully healthy and fully in shape and checks all their boxes with their sports science and stuff, yeah, I think he starts the season out as in terms of usage, their 1C. Now, whether he can still play like a 1C is a completely different question. But I think in terms of usage, yeah, I expect him to be the first-line center to start the year as long as he doesn't re-injure himself.
And I guess my question coming off of Couturier, and it's just, we'll see. Like, it's a big... I wouldn't say question mark because, again, he's a lock to make the team and they're going to try to use him, but it's how effective is he going to be in that role? It's his line mates, and not a ton of questions about Travis Konechny. I suppose we can ask, like, is he going to be as effective as last year?
We hope so.
They're going to continue to use him on the PK, develop other aspects of his game, and then the big question mark just becomes, how long is he a flyer?
Right.
Maybe a while, maybe not that long. We will see. But the other guy that I'm kind of penciling into that top line, disappointing season coming back for some. Coming back from the disc replacement surgery, Joel Farabee. Farabee ended the season last year, 15 goals. When you look at the full season totals, it's like, ooh, not great. Not great for a guy that we thought was ascending, could maybe become a true first-line player for this team. Maybe not superstar, perennial all-star, but dude who helps you win games, definitely in your top 6. You and I have often, I guess... It's unfair to compare anyone to Simone Gagne because the dude ruled, clutch, two-way player, awesome, top-line dude for half of his career.
I've argued that Simone Gagne is the signature player of the 2000s for the Flyers.
But a ceiling maybe for Farabee was next Simone Gagne, guy who could do all those things that Gagne did.
That's fair.
And he comes back from the disc replacement surgery, and to me last year was kind of a wash, kind of a pass year. I want to see him just get healthy. And when you look at the full season totals, no. But last 15 games, and granted, like, season's over, didn't matter.
Yeah.
So you always have that. Well, he's playing in glorified scrimmages. But 6 goals, 6 assists in those last 15 games. Pretty damn good. Do you think they have him penciled in at first line left wing?
No, I think he's going to have to earn it. I think that John Tortorella, him and Farabee butted heads a little bit last year.
Yeah.
I think in large part because Torts was conflicted about. And there were a lot of things about Farabee's game he liked. And on some level, he knew that this wasn't the real Joel Farabee in the sense that he wasn't really able to spend the previous offseason doing much work. He spent it mostly rehabbing his neck because he couldn't lift anything. So that wasn't Joel Farabee. And Torts had to tell himself repeatedly that I need to cut this guy some slack. But there were moments where the frustration bled over to the point where, and I mean, I can't say this with 100% certainty, but it does seem like when Farabee popped up on Frank Saravalli's trade list with a week before the deadline, that was driven probably by someone in Farabee's camp. My guess is it was his agent calling up Frank Saravalli and being like, we're ticked off that our player isn't being used right. And also, we have a head coach basically saying, we're not giving him a pass for having this injury. Then it seemed like over the next month and a half, Tortorella made an effort to be more publicly understanding of Farabee's predicament, of the fact that this probably wasn't the best of Joel Farabee. The thing is, though, and I think John Tortorella, in the end, was willing to basically say, okay, I'll give you last year. You get a pass. Thing is that he ain't going to be getting a pass this year. This is a put up or shut up year for Joel Farabee, not only in John Tortorella's estimation, but I think in a lot of fans' estimations too, because this is a guy who he kind of, I mean, obviously he was popular because he was a first round pick, came up pretty young. But the year when I think he really caught everyone's attention was that season in 2021 when they started in January. It was the shortened year because of the pandemic. And every single young player on the team either stagnated or regressed, with the exception of Farabee.
20 goals in 55 games.
Yeah, he was the one guy who really took a step forward, to the point where the Flyers locked him up to a contract right after that season, to the Andrew McDonald special, the 6-year, $30 million contract. Since then, the next year, he kind of stagnated, didn't really improve. And then last year, granted, the injury played a role, but we're going on 2 straight years now where he hasn't taken a step forward. This is a big year for him. He really has to.
And that's, I guess, like my frustration. Like I last year chalked it up to like, dude's coming back from a surgery 2 other guys have had.
Sure.
Like it's him,
and that's fair.
Eichel, and Tyler Johnson. We'll see, you know. Eichel in the playoffs showed like, oh yeah, you can get healthy again.
He's still real good.
And that's what like gives me a hope about Farabee's numbers. Like at the end of the year, much improved over the first, 65 games or whatever it was. But the organization didn't seem to give him that slack. So I'm interested to see where it goes. And Torts wasn't here, but I guess the organization's frustration can go back to the year prior where,
probably.
They're expecting a big step from him. 20 goals, 55 games. Then he plays 63 and scores 17. It's like, ooh. All right, so maybe it's not just that one. And Tortorella's shown a little bit of that frustration, even though he wasn't here for that first stagnation
he's still
season.
here and everybody telling him.
Everyone,
to be sure.
So maybe there's something to that. But beyond those top 3 guys there, like I'm really interested to see, and I know like Dave Isaac making the lines. We'll see. I know it's not you and it wasn't him, but just like I'm really interested to see how they set this thing up. Like, is Cam Atkinson as a Torts guy, 2 a veteran? Is he right away second line right wing? Like that's where he's going to be, or like is Tippett going to have to work his way up again, or is he kind of going to be penciled into a certain spot? Like from the rest of the dudes who are going to be in the top 9 as locks, how do you think they're going to be deployed?
Well, one thing I'll say, and I always say this, is try not to get hung up on line combos in particular,
Charlie.
but also where guys are in the lineup. What matters significantly more is minutes and usage.
Yes.
Like a guy could be on the 3rd line and you're going, oh my God, why is Jake Voracek on the 3rd line? And then you look at the end of the game and he's got 20 minutes.
Yeah, because he played every power play.
Because he played every power play and they gave him extra shifts. They popped him in here and there. He jumped on for offensive zone faceoffs, things like that. So I could envision a scenario, for example, where, say, Owen Tippett starts out on what nominally looks like the 3rd line, but he does that because Morgan Frost is nominally the 3rd line center, and they showed chemistry last year, and they want to keep that duo together. And then by the end of the game, you look at Owen Tippett has 19 minutes, and you say to yourself, okay, he's technically the 3rd line wing, but he's getting the 3rd most minutes in the forward group. So I would say pay more attention to that. That said, I think it's going to be really interesting how they make this whole thing shake out. Not necessarily the top 9, because I think those guys, the important guys, are going to get their minutes. To me, it's going to be about how do they let these young kids get the kind of usage they're going to need if they prove they're NHL ready? That, to me, is going to be a storyline. I talk about it in my piece that's coming out tomorrow for diehard subscribers. I think it's like a 4,000-word training camp and season preview. I went big on this.
Now that's
one.
a Charlie special.
It's a
right
Charlie
there.
special.
That's outstanding.
So if you are a diehard subscriber, check that out. But one thing I note in that piece is essentially that what's going to stay a storyline the entire year is how they get all of these young players the ice time in the NHL they need in order to develop and in order to further the rebuild that they've announced that they want to do.
And right now, we're talking about Flyers roster locks, and we're very confident that, the 10 names that we've been over, they're going to make the team. But if you've got some locks for NFL Week 3 you're confident in, the place to register that opinion, that's right, it's DraftKings.
Sure
Because
is.
football is back in full swing with another week of epic games. And who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? It's DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. But nobody's missing out on the action this season because all DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. If you get those offers, you got your locks. Man, you get your free bets, your odds boosts, whatever it might be. Get your locks in at DraftKings. Get in on NFL Week 3 action with DraftKings Sportsbooks. Download the app now and use code PHLY to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code PHLY. The crown is yours.
Here we go.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in ONT. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming sources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Almost perfect.
Almost.
You had a little flub, but I would give that like a good 95 out of 100. I think it's your best one yet.
It's getting better. We're going to lose them as a sponsor before I perfect it, but I'm looking forward to having them all season. So hopefully I get that 10 from Charlie. But you're a tough grader.
I am.
Chuck's a tough grader.
You know what? You have to. I have to make it so that when you get the 100, you feel like you really earned it.
Yeah, I'm more of a curve guy.
Okay.
Like, just grade me on a curve.
Is that how college went for you?
There wasn't no curve saving me. The Phillies had quite a run when I was in college, and I aced that.
Yeah, Phillies 101. You got an A in that class.
I was excellent at watching the Phillies when I was in college. We talked about like the forwards. It's going to be a wait and see thing. I think the roles of the top 4 defensemen a lot more of a lock for the dudes who we know are going to be here. Sanheim, Ristolainen is your de facto top pair.
Kind of, maybe.
Let's year 1 of Ristolainen, we decided even the organization knows he's not a top pair guy. Here we are, though, and they don't seem to really have anyone else, and they like him with Sanheim. They like that dynamic, even though I guess he's gotten better at defense. Risto, despite his size, not a stay-at-home defenseman, but they're turning him into one. Sanheim, that more puck mover kind of guy. That's your, I guess, top pair. And then York Stahl. Just kind of, we'll see how these guys all get paired up, but we assume Cam York is going to be a big part of this. They like the way he finished the season. And Mark Stahl, after playing top 4 minutes for the Eastern Conference champion, you have to assume is going to be in a similar role now with a team with no defensemen.
No, I think that's the case. I think it makes sense to me that neither of these pairs are actually going to be a top pair, that they're more going to split up the minutes. But I do think the chalk pick is that Sanheim Ristolainen will get the tougher minutes, at least to start. And this Stahl York idea, I think if they would do it, York would probably move to the right side because Stahl's a lefty. But
which I love.
I go back to Florida last year, and from what I've heard from people I talk to that pay attention to Florida, that are more on the national side, is that they paired Mark Stahl with Brandon Montour pretty much all of last season. That partnership was a thing. And Montour had a monster year, scored a ton of points. And apparently every time they asked Montour kind of like what happened, how were we able to break out, he always said that Mark Stahl has been a big help. And I think they might...
So he was like his Niskanen.
A little bit, yeah. I think they may look at it as, okay, well, let's try to do for Cam York what Mark Stahl did for Brandon Montour last year. I don't think York is as dynamic as Brandon Montour, but he's a skilled guy. And maybe you put a guy like Stahl next to him, even if they're not necessarily doing great by the advanced stats, if that opens up York offensively in terms of point production, it could all be worth it because maybe that unlocks a part of his game that he can keep even after Mark Stahl is gone. I bet that'll be where their line of thinking is, but I don't think they're going to look at Mark Stahl and say, okay, well, Cam York is our most talented defenseman. That means Mark Stahl is on the top pair because he's 36, he's old, and he hasn't been peak Mark Stahl for like a decade now.
It's been like since we like that 2011 team we keep bringing up, like that's his era, but he's still effective. I mean, we don't love what he did in Florida last year, but it's true. He played those minutes, and
they went to the minutes.
They went to the Stanley Cup final. He couldn't have been that bad.
Exactly.
I just, for people who might be new to the show, don't know my opinion about lefties playing the right side. I fucking love it.
You were a defenseman.
No, I was a bad high school defenseman, but I was a lefty who played the right side, and if you are looking to generate offense, it's so easy. You're facing the net.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go across your body, and like you're right there. And I really like the idea of cross-training one of these guys to play the right side, because we talked about the other day, what if the guy, quote unquote, is a lefty, and they like, oh, well, who can play the right? We got to go find a right. Like, or just have the best players out there and have somebody able to do both, or a lefty, like whatever it is. It drives me nuts because lefties grow up playing the right side a ton because there's so many left-handed defensemen.
Yep.
They can do it. Just give them the opportunity. So I really like this idea.
Unless
Stahl's going to play the left.
So I didn't play in high school, but I did play. I played in a ton of like rec leagues and for fun and stuff. And I did not get the memo that if you right-handed and if you're right-hand dominant, you should shoot lefty. So I taught myself to shoot right-handed, even though I probably shouldn't have.
It's back and forth, but from what I can tell, like defensemen especially, because you have one hand on your stick. But I am a natural lefty, and it was like my parents didn't know anything about hockey. They're like, you're left-handed, buy a left-handed stick. I hold it like I hold a baseball bat.
That was my thought. Yeah,
that's what you do. But like, a lefty is probably a natural righty, and then you have your dominant hand on the stick. You play so much poke checking, that sort of thing. So it makes sense why there's so many left-handed defensemen.
I played forward. I just tried to score goals.
Yeah, so dudes do it. It happens. So that's your locks on defense, and then in net, pending whatever, Carter Hart is your number one goalie. Danny Briere said it to you 2 days ago. He's our number one.
Right.
And it doesn't sound like, I mean, again, pending whatever, it sounds like they're going to go with him a lot. Now, if Ursan makes the team instead of Sandstrom or Peterson or whatever, maybe that's different because they want to get him games, and we'll talk about the goalie battle. But as of now, it sounds like Carter Hart's just going to play.
Yeah.
And play a ton.
I think they're still trying to make up their mind as to whether he's part of this long-term solution. And obviously the Hockey Canada thing looms large over all of this. But the fact of the matter is that Carter Hart is kind of, in a way, similar to guys like Tippett, where we know they're good. The question is, can they be great? And Carter Hart has yet to take that leap into greatness. He is a good goalie. He is a legitimate NHL number one starting goalie.
Yep.
Is he great yet? No, he's not. But he's young enough where he still could, especially at a goalie position where sometimes guys break out later.
You peak later, and when you're good forever. Like that's the hope, is maybe he's just one of these goalies who's going to be great at 36. Like that's, and hopefully it doesn't take that long. It's 11 years from now, but just like,
he's not Tim Thomas.
Yeah. But hopefully he's just one of these goalies that like his peak is not okay. And then like he plateaus for a while.
Yeah.
That's the hope with him.
Yeah.
So that's like 15 roster spots right there.
Yeah.
Out of 23.
It's a lot of it. And they might not even go with 23. They might go with 22.
They very well could. Then we have these returning bubble guys. They're not rookies, they're not prospects, but they're certainly not established, and they're going to be in some battles. We start with Wade Allison, Nick Seeler, who we know they really like, Tanner Lazinski, who we know they really don't, and Felix Sandstrom, who, man, if I'm making a depth chart, I guess I have him ahead of Peterson just because he's here, but like,
maybe not.
Probably not.
Yeah, maybe not.
He's an NHL goalie. At least he has been in the past. Felix Sandstrom ain't, as far as I can tell. He had an 880 save percentage last year.
And granted, we've talked about this, how he wasn't necessarily put in ideal situations when he played. But honestly, Neither was Urson, and Urson performed better in those situations than Sandstrom did last year. So Sandstrom is fascinating because he was, for all intents and purposes, the primary backup goalie last year, and now entering this year, and we'll get into the battle in a little bit, he kind of enters camp maybe as not an afterthought, but not a favorite to get that job again.
No, especially considering, like, it was... Now, they didn't play him because they didn't really want to last year, but considering he was the backup for a majority of the season, he's not expected to retain that role, I would guess.
No, I don't think so either. So Sandstrom's going to be fascinating. We mentioned Wade Allison. He's in a battle for a lot of positions, and we're going to talk about this probably the next segment, but he could end up in a lot of places, or he could end up on the bench. He could end up in the press box.
Of these 4 bubble guys, Allison, Sealer, Lazinski, Sandstrom, I would say the only one that is, in my mind, a favorite to be dressed on opening night is Nick Sealer.
Yeah, it would
just because, like, maybe it's Zamula, maybe one of these kids just blows the doors off and they have to put him on the team, but they like Nick Sealer.
Yeah, I think that Sealer is very close to being there's no way he's not on the roster somehow type of lock. He's not quite there because he's a third pair defenseman. And you know what? Those guys always have to earn it pretty much, unless you're a third pair defenseman that's making $6 million a year, because then you're just kind of stuck with them. And even then, you might just send him down to the minors. But Sealer, they love. He had a really good year last year. He was on my Ashby ballot. I think I had York number 1, but I think I had Sealer number 2.
Really?
Yeah.
He convinced Stack Guy Charlie.
His stats were good last year. Really good, actually.
He was pretty deep.
No, I think my top 3 was York number 1, Sealer number 2, and then Rasmus Ristolainen number 3.
Gritty was 3rd.
But somehow Ivan Provorov won the award, even though I don't know anyone. I know one person who voted for him.
Fake news.
Wild stuff
Fake
there.
News.
Anyway, I'm not going to go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
Whatever. It's a new season. It's over.
I would expect Sealer makes this roster, but given how many young players, young defensemen there are battling for spots, and legitimately good young defensemen, prospects they like, you can't just pencil him in. If he goes out there and just flops in camp, they'll think about the idea of, well, you know,
we like Jennings.
We want Jennings on the team. Andres killed it. Yeah, we know if we send Nick Sealer through waivers, we know he's gone, but maybe we just don't need him anymore. It's possible,
and that's
not likely, but possible.
I think he's a favorite, but not. You know, he's not a lock that I would go bet at DraftKings. You know, that's how I would. Yeah,
go bet at DraftKings,
probably. But yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they're taking all sorts of action on Flyers opening night roster.
So much action.
But we're gonna get to some of these. I'm gonna start some of these battles just before we do the next.
Let's kick it off with the top 9 wins.
There's top 9 spots open or spot. Really, when we're looking at, and that's the first roster battle we have for you. And yeah, there's 5 guys in the top 6 that we assume are going to fill that out.
But top 9 on the wing.
I just mean yes, because of the position.
Exactly.
Yes,
the centers are pretty much Couturier, Cates, Frost, so that's locked down. But there's one spot I would say available at wing, because you assume Konechny, Farabee, Atkinson, Tippett, and Lawton. Lawton's the only one who's like, well, he can play anywhere. But the fact of the matter is, the guy scored a lot of points last year. He had maybe his best season of his career.
And the coach loves him.
Yeah, the coach loves him. He's going to be in the top 9. That leaves one spot available for someone else to take on the wing, whether it's the left side or the right side. They can find a way to make that work. But 5 guys, I would say, in the mix for that spot, with the guy we've been talking about since we started the show last week, Tyson Forrester, kind of at the top of the list.
That's Tyson Forrester, I would guess, we made him a favorite to make the team. I doubt they want him playing 4th line, 7 minutes a game next to Nick Delorier.
No, he's got to be in the top 9.
So he's got to be in the top 9.
Yeah.
Then it's him, Wade Allison, Bobby Brink, Elliot Desnoyers, and you actually put Ollie Lykesell in there.
I mean, he got a decent amount of chances last year, was really impressive last year at camp, so I could see him being really impressive again this year at camp, and he's still kind of a prospect. This is a guy who led the AHL team in scoring in points last year. He had a good year, and I certainly wouldn't consider him a favorite, but I do think that maybe we're not talking enough about him because he's been around for so long.
We talk a ton about Brink and Desnoyers and Allison's that throw in of, well, he should be here, but we'll see.
Right.
He's got to stay healthy. He's got to win over the coach. And then Lykesell's it's Lykesell, right?
Lixell.
Lixell. Okay.
Lixell.
I feel like it has changed.
Ole Lixell.
I feel like it has changed a few times.
I think that might just be you not knowing how to pronounce words.
You know, that's always on the table. If we had to order these guys, I would say Forster, odds-on favorite. He's got a flop.
Yeah, I would agree.
Then where would you go from there? Allison second?
I think Allison is he's the backup plan if Forster doesn't play well, because he can play that role. He can play third line, right wing. He's done it. He could even play the left wing. They tried him out on the left side near the end of the year. I think to have that flexibility, knowing what was coming this season. So if Forster doesn't play well, I would make Allison the odds-on favorite. Bobby Brink's in there. I think Brink has to significantly outplay Forster. I'm not expecting him to do that, but he could. He's a talented guy. He could outplay him.
This is also the Flyers. 9 dudes could get injured.
True. You never know. But that's a really good point.
I'm looking at Bobby Brink. You know, we talked about how Briere was almost responding to LePerriere's criticism.
I absolutely think he was.
And it was like, well, okay, Forster, listen, he's not hard. Like, we're not writing him off. You know, okay, it wasn't great, but it didn't maybe matter all that much for Forster. I think it mattered for Brink. And it's like, yeah, man, you are the one who had to blow us away. And it started with the rookie games, and you did not.
Yeah, and I think, too, it's just that, number one, I just think Forster's a better all-around prospect than Bobby Brink. But number two, it's the fact that Forster, and I was at both these rookie games, he had definitely good parts. You know, he showed not just flashes, he was legitimately, in my mind, good in the first period of game one. He was strong along the boards. He did things where you thought to yourself, you know what, give him an NHL center. He probably scores 2 goals in this game. He just needs somebody to set him up, and these are all also prospects. He's not the fastest dude. He needs someone to kind of carry him along to get him in the offensive zone to make those plays. Brink, on the other hand, aside from the power play, I didn't think he looked good at all. And it's hard for me, aside from his work on the power play, to point out bright spots. And this is a guy who already came into camp behind someone like Forrester in the battle to make a jump.
So we're going to go Tyson 1, Allison 2, Desnoyers 3. Is Brink last?
The thing with Desnoyers is that while I think Desnoyers has a chance to make the team, like him making the team on the third line,
for this specifically,
like, he could
not.
He could.
Okay,
it's possible, but he would need to really score a lot of points and convince them in preseason that, like, this guy needs to be on the team, and maybe we don't want to mess with our fourth line. So sure, throw him on the third line, see what he does. Like, he could fit because he can kind of play anywhere, but Brink is more of a top 9 or bust guy. Desnoyers is a guy where if he plays well enough in camp, they'll find a spot for him, and that spot might happen to be on the third line.
You know, right now we're talking about players looking to earn that Flyers jersey, that gear. Well, if you're looking to get some gear, you don't have to earn it, man. You can just go to FOCO, because FOCO has the absolute best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. It's football and tailgating season. It's getting cold out there, man. It's like brisk. I wore jeans and wasn't sweating for the first time in a couple of weeks.
Beautiful day today.
Yes, it's pretty nice. Gorgeous out there. Tailgates are coming up. Eagles just around the corner. Red October coming. You need your warm weather stuff. Overalls, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags. FOCO has everything you need for a game. And if you're looking for whether you're looking for cool team apparel or, you know, the accessories, toys, novelties, things like we have right behind us, cool collectible stuff for that man cave, FOCO has you there as well. They always have our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description. And for all non-presale items, use promo code PHLY. That's promo code PHLY for 10% off at FOCO. You can't go wrong.
You really can't.
I like that setup. I was happy with that.
That was a real good one.
I was happy
Props
with that
to you,
one.
man.
So that's like, for those top 9 spots, that's what we're looking like. It's going to be Tyson Forster, barring horrible camp and/or injury.
Barring a Cam York-esque camp from last year,
where they just can't give it to him.
I think I would say Forster's the favorite. If Forster flops, it's probably Wade. And then guys like Brink needs to blow the doors off. Desnoyers needs to not only impress, but also score a lot to be put in a top 9 role. And Lixell needs to basically have an even better camp than he had last year when he really put himself on the map, just because there's more competition this year.
All right, so that's what we're talking about with those spots on the top 9, but that's not the only competition amongst the forwards. No. There's also this fourth line role, and it's really, really difficult to look at these fourth liners and not just go, Nick Delorier's playing.
Yeah, well,
You know?
and again, we said that Delorier and Hathaway, like, they're making the team. That said, they're still battling for a fourth line job for game one. And we have this list of 8 guys. You would think that the fourth line is going to, assuming there aren't any injuries, which, again, it's the Flyers, there very well could be, you would assume the fourth line will probably be some combination of these 8 players. And to me, the chalk pick in terms of a fourth line is Delorier at left wing, Ryan Poehling at center, and then Garnet Hathaway at right wing. But that doesn't mean it's a lock, because if you're a fourth liner, you got to earn your spot. And there's going to be kids. Wade Allison, if he doesn't get that top 9 role, he could be a fourth liner. He can fit in that spot. Tanner Lazinski's trying to bounce back after a rough year developmentally last year. Elliot Desnoyers, I think, honestly, out of the prospects,
has the best
chance because he can play center, he can play wing, and he plays a fourth line style. So I think
that's when they talk about the details of his game.
Yes.
They mean he doesn't make the dumb mistakes that get fourth liners sent to the AHL.
Exactly.
Like, he might not wow you. If he does, he might be in our top 9.
Yeah.
But if he just does the little stuff that he's proven he's pretty damn good at, he could be a fourth liner in this league right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just looking at that, and it's, I love Ryan Poehling simply because he scored that hat trick in his debut.
Yep.
And then I said he was going to then the next year, as, after his only career NHL game, was the all-time leader in goals per game. He scored 3, played 1. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
I said he was going to win.
That was an accurate stat.
I said he was going to win the Calder the next year. Well, over the last 3 seasons, he has scored 17 total goals. Now the Flyers, I think they give him 1.4, and he's an RFA after this. So he's waiver exempt, right?
No.
Okay.
I'm fairly confident that he would need to pass through waivers.
He scored 17 goals over the last 3 years.
They're looking at him, and they signed him basically because they want to see if they can turn him into something more. Now, at this point, he doesn't have the ceiling of a top 6, or if he was going to show it, he would have shown it
Probably
already.
would have.
But I think the way they're looking at it with him is he's only 24. He's already shown that he can be a passable fourth line center. Maybe he can be more than that. That said, he's new to this coaching staff.
Yeah.
If he comes out here in preseason and training camp and either isn't in great shape or just doesn't look good in games, they're not wedded to him. And somebody like Elliot Desnoyers could easily beat him out for that fourth line center job and push Poehling not to the minors necessarily, but
to the press
box to be sure.
So I'm just like, I like Ryan Poehling, and I love taking a swing on a guy, like, even if it's a dumb, like, let's see what he turns into, like they did with Chief Keef last year, Kiefer Bellows. That's why I wanted to draft him, is because I wanted to call him.
You wanted to call him Chief Keef. Well, you got to use it one time.
Get him on waivers, see what happens. Now it didn't work out.
I mean,
most of these things don't. That's why he was on waivers.
In retrospect, they didn't pick up Kiefer Bellows and instead waited like another 3 weeks and picked up Eli Tolvanen instead? Yes, I do. Yeah. But they didn't know Tolvanen was going to get waived when they picked up Kiefer Bellows.
Yeah, that was a rough one. Not going to lie. Just looking at what Tolvanen did. What was it in Seattle?
Seattle, yeah.
Broke out right away.
Yeah.
Was the guy. He was immediately, for Coach Dave Hackstall.
Yeah, right.
Doing the thing we expected him to do when we thought the Flyers were drafting him, because NHL Network told us they were drafting him.
They sure did.
And then, of course, they take Morgan Frost, who will,
he's an NHL player,
too. He's an NHL player. It all worked out in the end, but
sort of.
That's like, now there's not as much emphasis on, like, God damn it, we need the goal scorer, because we have a bunch of them.
Right.
But he was so much that, this guy puts the puck in the net, and we have no one who does that.
Yeah.
It's a team of passers.
Yeah.
We're just bums. Yeah. But whatever. Here we are now with Ryan Poehling, and we'll see how it works out. But he is probably, like, you went down the chalk for that fourth line.
I would say he's the favorite
the one
to win
that
the
can
job.
be supplanted, though.
Yeah.
Like, Delorier is going to play.
Yes.
And Garnet Hathaway's probably going to play because he's pretty damn good.
That's the thing. Like, I don't know if Hathaway is a lock, but I just think he's going to make himself a lock because it's a darn good fourth liner. Delorier is not a darn good fourth liner, but he is the designated protector of the kids in this lineup. So you would think more often than not he's going to play.
Charlie, I have to watch this team. I want to see some fucking fights. All right?
Fair.
I don't know what else to tell you.
Fair enough.
Is it Neanderthal thinking? Is it a way of hockey that is long since passed by? Yes. Do I still love the fights and want to see the fights, especially for if I have to watch a team that's never going to win? I want to see some carnage.
You want to see some face punching.
Just show me the damn fights. So I want him in this.
You and a lot of Flyers fans.
I want him in this freaking lineup, Chuck. So that's the fourth line. So we see it working out right now. Forster is in that top 9.
Right.
And probably Paling with Delorier and Hathaway. But there is a chance maybe Desnoyers, that's
Pushes
the
his way
most
on.
likely one to supplant.
Yeah, I would say Desnoyers definitely the most likely. Tanner Lazinski needs a big camp. I just don't know if I trust him to have that big camp. But he's in the mix. He can play center and wing, and he'll get a shot.
And you've liked him in the past.
I have. I don't know, after all the injuries, I just don't know if he's the same guy. But yeah, I like his skill set. I think he's got talent. I think he could make it work somewhere else. Just might not be here. Beyond those two, Lixell, probably more of a top niner, but I think if he's going to make it in the NHL, he needs to be a bottom sixer. So I don't think they would rule out the possibility of having him be on the fourth line.
He's someone whose development won't be hurt by playing 7 minutes a game.
Exactly.
He kind of just is what he is.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there's Rhett Gardner, who no one knows who he is.
He's not a real person.
Yeah, right. He's not real. No, he was a signing in the offseason. He's mostly a quad A guy, but I'm sure you're going to see him in preseason games. So
there he is.
This is a good time for you to familiarize yourself with Rhett Gardner and his, I think, 2 points in like 40 NHL games so far.
His status on Cap Friendly just says training camp.
Beautiful.
And I've been on Cap Friendly for all week, and no, he's there. He is a real person. I did not know who he was.
Yep.
And I've been looking at this.
Am I expecting him to make the team? No.
But he's
I
in the
can't
mix.
rule it out entirely.
And like with this coaching staff, and
never
the
know.
dumb shit that they're going to prioritize. And I like the coaching staff for the most part. Do they do some stuff I disagree with? Yeah, because they're hockey coaches and I'm not. So obviously,
Yes.
obviously I disagree with them sometimes. But they prioritize different things than I do sometimes. Maybe he shows them those stupid things and he makes the team. It's not out of the realm of possibility since you're bringing it up. And that brings us to this defense, which is, I mean, you heard us go through the top 4, and it's 2 guys who are at best second pair dudes in Sanheim and Ristolainen, Cam York, who we're still hopeful on because he hasn't taught us to hate him yet,
Right.
and Mark Stahl, who's 144 years old. And then a
Slight
bunch of
exaggeration,
dudes
but the
battling
point.
for this third spot. As you can see in the graphic here, they are all kind of battling. You know, they bring over Sean Walker from LA in that, salary dump,
Right.
the 3-way deal to send Provorov out. So Sean Walker's, Nick Seeler, a dude we know that they love. When it came to the trade deadline, it was like, nah, we need like franchise-altering return for Nick freaking Seeler.
Still bonkers to me that they did not trade Nick Seeler.
Absolutely. The idea that they could have got a first plus for Lawton at the draft, and it was like, no. I'm like, okay, you want culture, etc. I get it. Not really, but I get it. But Nick Seeler, this is, and I like him.
No, I like him too.
I like him. But like, yeah, we're holding on.
Well,
But
you know
he is
what it was?
probably one of the favorites.
I don't even know. I think this came after the trade deadline, so we can't even say this was the reason. But what it really was is that they remember that one highlight reel goal he scored.
Yeah.
It was just like maybe the goal of the year for the Flyers, and they're like, we can't afford to get rid of this
love
guy.
when dudes-
he's gonna win the Norris. You kidding me?
I love when dudes break that stuff just to show you, like, I've been good my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Just to remind you that they're NHL players.
it's
I
like-
love when those dudes break that stuff out.
It's like how, we were just saying, and I, in passing, basically said that Nick Delorier is not that great of a fourth liner. If Nick Delorier stepped on the ice in a beer league game,
No.
he would score 10 goals.
No, he shows up to the men's league. He's dangling everyone,
Yes.
and if he goes to the AHL, he's better than half. Like he goes anywhere in the world. We're talking about the NHL here.
Exactly.
Like, for everyone, like, oh, look at Bill. Yes, I know. Look at me. I'm ridiculous. I can't comment on anyone's actual ability, but we're comparing them to other NHLers.
Right.
Like that's the conversation here. But Nick Seeler, he's probably one of the favorites to be on that third pair. And then you look at Igor Zamula. No longer waiver exempt. They have just, I've talked about myself personally being pot committed to guys. I want to know how it works out.
Yeah.
They just have to feel as if Man, we have put a lot into developing this guy. It's been a few years. We've brought him along. He was an invitee, and now all of a sudden, like, he earned a spot, and then he's in, the Phantoms. We've brought him up. He's played some NHL games. I feel like they're going to want him not to have to go through waivers.
You forget that he made the roster out of camp last year. Cam York got sent down. Igor Zamula jumped him briefly on the organizational depth chart. Now, he did nothing with the opportunity, which was a bummer. And then by the end of the year, Cam York was a solid top 4 defenseman. He had solidified that spot, and Igor Zamula was still flailing around kind of in the AHL. So he didn't have the best year, but there was a point where they were really high on Igor Zamula, and not just they as in the organization. I'm talking about they as in John Tortorella and the people that actually have power now. So to me, it would be very hard for me to imagine Igor Zamula not making the roster. I don't know if he would get claimed. My guess is that someone would give him a look. That said, maybe we're overrating him. He was an undrafted free agent. He is on the older side now. He hasn't played much NHL. So it's possible he could slip through. I just don't think they're going to take the risk. I think they like him too much.
And we also know, maybe they don't take the risk because they don't want to. We also know that time of year, roster cutdowns, end of training camp, everyone's trying to get their guys through waivers, and there is that. It's not the same as the handshake, wink agreement on offer sheets. Like, you don't fuck with our guys, we won't with yours.
I'm sure it's a little bit there.
But there is a little bit, especially that time of year.
Yeah.
Like, in December when we got 3 injuries and you're putting someone on, we're taking them because we're out of guys.
Right.
But that time of year, I do feel like there is a little bit of that offer sheet thing where it's, we can, but you want me to do it to you?
It's also just the fact that you spent an entire camp evaluating your guys. You made the decision that this guy earned a job, and then you're just going to pick up this random dude from another organization and send that guy who for 3.5 weeks worked his ass off to earn a spot, and you're just going to send him down because Igor Zamula, one of our scouts went to bat for him in the room. Like, it happens, but it doesn't happen all the time because teams get wedded, GMs get wedded to their rosters that they've built over the course of training camp. So he could slip through. I just don't see the Flyers risking it. But that opens the question up of, if he makes the team, does he make the team as the 7? Or if he makes the team, are they immediately shoving him into the lineup? And if they are, who sits?
If we had to break this roster battle for this third pair into tiers, me personally, I'd want to go Walker, Sealer, Zamula, first tier.
Yes.
And then the rest of the guys below that.
Yeah, I would probably put it as Walker, Sealer, Zamula is top tier.
Is Grons, does he have an argument to be in that tier, or is he definitely below?
No, to me, actually, and this is me just spitballing, I would say you have that top tier with Walker and Sealer kind of leading that because they are the established NHL veterans. To me, then tier 2 is Adert and Jennings, actually. I think those two guys are the two guys closest. Then you've got Andre, probably maybe part of that tier, but probably a step below Jennings and Adert. And then you have Grons and Victor Mete kind of in the...
Okay.
I don't think Grons is close. I think that it's possible because you never know. This organization, this coaching staff isn't familiar with him. If he just goes out there and kills it, maybe they get sold. But to me, compare him to, say, somebody like Ronnie Adert, who spent the entire season in the AHL last year, got a brief look at the NHL level at the end of last season. They know him. They know what he is. Same thing with Jennings. They like him. They've seen him play. Grons needs to win over everyone in the organization, a bunch of people who just don't know him. So to me, he's below... He's even below somebody like Andre, who, yes, he's a prospect, but he has that, he needs to get used to the end of the North American game. We'll give him some time in the AHL.
And we just know how important, being familiar with a guy, like in this.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just not this organization. We'll knock this organization, but like, how long have we talked about, we know this guy's going to make mistakes, but we know what mistakes he's going to make because we're familiar with him. So we're going to go with that over the unknown of, we're not sure about which mistakes some dude who just joined is going to make, so we can't go with him.
You know what's
like? There's always.
You know what also can be unknown? How you're going to get into a game without tickets.
It's always tough. It's last minute. I want to go to this game tonight. A guy got scratched, and all of a sudden I want to go, but Game Time has you covered for that because buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't ever be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets, start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. How much fun are we going to have watching this team? Well, it's up for debate right now. Hopefully, if Delorier plays a lot, we'll have a ton of fun watching them.
You will,
but yeah, I will have a ton of fun. But it doesn't matter whether you're planning well in advance or you're waiting till the last minute, because Game Time is the place for last minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Now that's confidence in one of your locks.
Sure
right there
is.
To combine some of our reads. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It's fun that we're not guaranteed that it's going to be the lowest price defenseman because they actually have some cap space.
Yeah, right.
That's
exactly.
That's a fun transition there.
Yeah.
But I said, if we're going to break this into tiers, Walker, Sealer, Zamula, that's your top end. Is it wide open though? Yeah, they're likely, but we talked. Yeah, it's probably the fourth line's the fourth line, and the top nine is probably the top nine. Is this the spot where there's the best chance for someone to be surpassed? At least in one of the 2-3 spots?
It's hard for me to imagine. I'm not saying it can't happen. It's hard for me to imagine Nick Sealer not in the starting lineup. I just think he's earned a lot of leash given the fact that he was really good last year. And I don't think that
Do they look at him like a veteran? Because I'm just in my head,
I think they do.
You're going to put York and you're going to put him with Stahl. And okay, if Zamula's going to actually play over Walker, is Nick Sealer looked at as the veteran there? Because they're not going to have two young guys together,
and I think so. I think they would look at Sealer as a stabilizing presence for someone like Zamula. So to me, Sealer I'm not quite writing him into the game one starting lineup in ink, but I'm writing with pretty hard pencil. I'll put it that way. Walker to me is the opportunity because this is a guy who
they don't know him.
Well, they don't know him, and also to me, Number one, he was essentially a cap dump. That's why they got him, because LA was trying to dump salary. And I think the way the Flyers looked at it was, well, he's a right-handed shooting defenseman. We don't have many of those. He can take the minutes. We just traded Provorov. Sure, we'll find a spot for him. It's good to have NHL depth. Then they found out shortly after the start of free agency that for some reason, Mark Stahl was willing to go to a rebuilding team, so they signed into a cheap deal. Now, suddenly, Sean Walker isn't as important because there was a scenario where Sean Walker maybe started out the season in the top 4 if they don't get Mark Stahl. Now, he's a third-pair defenseman who they don't know. Igor Zamula can play the right side. If they want to get Igor Zamula in the lineup, to me, it's way more likely he pushes out Walker. He pushes Walker down to the press box or up to the press box. Then he pushes Nick Sealer out. Then you have Ronnie Adder, who also is close, and he actually does shoot right-handed. So to me, Adder and Zamula are very much gunning for that Walker spot. I think both of them are. This is part of the reason why I hesitate. As much as they like Jennings, I hesitate to say he has a really good chance because to me, he might have to push out Sealer. I just don't know if he can do that. Sealer was good last year.
And definitely, things could change as the season goes on. Jennings could look great. Sealer could be a guy who goes to the deadline, whatever it is.
Or he could flop.
Yeah, or he could
Nick Sealer was good last year, but he hasn't been that good most of his career.
No, there's a reason they have him because he was available.
Yeah.
That's who he is. So we'll see. But I look at I guess amongst the skaters, the most open competition is when I said the bottom pair. It's the Sean Walker spot.
Right.
We'll see who Sean Walker it's his spot. It might not even actually be penciled in like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It could just be wide open. But then we get to the final roster battle we're going to discuss today, and it is for backup goaltender. Yes, Carter Hart is the established number 1, and as we had a comment earlier, I don't know, contradicting us, but just trying to say like, oh, he's established himself as a pretty good number one behind a horrible defense.
True.
Listen, we both like Carter Hart's game and think there's another level, but we also need to see that other level. He's not stealing them. Listen, he played a ton last year, and they were the 7th worst team in hockey.
Yeah.
He's not stealing them games yet. He's not in that stealing games like level.
He was on that
but
level.
He might have it.
He was on that level for maybe the first month and a half of last season, and you're like, oh shit, this dude might be taking the leap. And then he came back to earth. He wasn't bad. He just came back to earth and played okay the rest of the year. But for that 6-week period, you were thinking to yourself, oh man, are they going to play themselves out of a top draft pick because Carter Hart has a Vezina year out of nowhere?
Yeah. So, and that's, I guess, the fear, but also like,
it wouldn't be the worst thing. Yeah, it might not be the best thing for the rebuild, but for us, it would be kind of fun.
Yeah, whether they're going to keep him.
I got to watch this team anyway.
Whether they're going to keep him or trade him, it would be good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, either way, it wouldn't be horrible. But behind Carter Hart is the, I suppose, incumbent, Felix Sandstrom, Sam Ersson, who came on last year and looked really good in like 7 of his 8 starts or whatever he ended up playing. And then the dude, they just took on all sorts of guys from LA.
They sure did.
To help them open up some cap.
Get some draft picks,
Cal
get
Pedersen,
LJ Grans.
who a bit of a, I guess, reclamation project if he's going to be here, potentially the veteran in the AHL, whatever it is. But that's your battle there. I have to say Erson's the favorite just because I know the coach liked him.
I just think he's the best goalie. Like, to me, he's the favorite, not because I'm trying to predict what's going to be going through their heads and whatnot. To me, he's the favorite because he's the best goalie out of the 3. Cal Peterson, 2.5 years ago, looked like he was going to be the heir apparent to Jonathan Quick. Then the last 2 seasons, he's been terrible to the point where he got sent down to the AHL last year. Felix Sandstrom got his shot to be the backup goalie last year. Ersson was better. So you've got Ersson against a guy who was so bad last year in the NHL that he got demoted, and a guy who he was better than last year in the NHL. So that's why, to me, Ersson is the favorite. It's possible, though, he struggles. You never know. It's also possible that they look at it as, well, we want to get him a lot of games, and he'll get more games in the AHL than the NHL. That said, he got a lot of games last year in the AHL. I think this is when you want a guy like Ersson, who they think very highly of. So highly, they signed into a 2-year extension a year early this past summer. So they think he's going to be part of the future. And if he's part of the future, get him in NHL games and let him play.
I guess when they first acquired Cal Peterson, I looked at it and was like, oh, okay, I know him, and didn't like look at his numbers. Oh my God. I had no idea. One, he only made 9 starts and played 10 total games last year. And he had an 868.
Yeah, it was real bad.
That doesn't sound possible.
And he's getting paid $5 million a year on the cap. Now you can see why they wanted to get rid of him.
His career trajectory is wild. Like, as a rookie, granted, only 10 starts, but 924. Next year, 922 and only 8 starts. But then 911 and 32, you can live with that as a backup.
That's why they thought he was going to be the guy.
Like, 35 starts, 895, not ideal, but we've had plenty of goalies with those numbers. And then last year, 868?
Yeah, the floor just fell off from under him.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so we'll see.
On, like, a pretty decent team in LA.
I mean, LA was a playoff team. Yeah, they were a playoff team. So I think there's obviously a hope that maybe he can be a reclamation project. Maybe he turns it around with a new coaching staff, and that can't be ruled out. But he was just so bad last year, and it wasn't just last year, it was bad the year before, that you wonder if he's just lost it.
And those are the roster battles. And now as training camp goes on, I think you and I both expect Ersson to kind of win this thing.
Yeah, I think so.
But like, as training camp goes on, obviously we will update these roster battles. Maybe we'll have like these tiers I'm talking about, whatever it is. But we're going to continue doing that. I wanted to start our Metro Division preview today, but we're already at like an hour 3.
We can do that tomorrow or
not going to
Friday.
get into that. But I do just want to ask you before we wrap.
Sure.
Metro Division champ 2023-24. Who's it going to be?
The Devils.
They're going to overtake the Canes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Canes are going to be real good again.
I think so, too.
But I think the Devils, this is the year they take the leap.
If the Canes are smart, they don't do we're pursuing the President's Trophy and then they're going to crap out in the playoffs
You're not
again.
wrong.
Like, maybe they go that Tampa Bay route
And the Devils were right there last year.
They finished a point behind.
Yeah.
Canes were 113, Devils 112.
Yeah,
so
they made some good moves this offseason. I felt like they have a couple young prospects that are going to be taking the leap this year, most likely, onto the roster. The Devils just look real good. And the Canes look real good, too. Like, those 2 teams, to me, are the obvious class of the division. But I think I think the last thing I did for The Athletic, if I remember correctly, was vote in our Metro poll of ranking the teams, because I collaborated on a piece that we did like right as I was leaving, and I'm about 99.9% sure I picked the Devils to win the division. So I'm sticking with it.
This division it's finally what we wanted it to be. Like the Pens and Caps are on their way down, and like we have these young guys, and they're like 24-ish, making their way. Yeah, Flyers. Yeah.
Dead last.
Well, second to last
Second to
behind
last.
Columbus last year,
Fair.
who wasn't even a real team. Like that's
They just gave up.
The points totals in this were nuts. Like 113, 112, Rangers 107, Isles 93. They pushed the Pens out late. Pens at 91, Caps 80. They had a bad year. Flyers 75, horrible. Blue Jackets 59.
Yeah, everyone got hurt, and then they gave up.
They just straight up gave up, and then they hired a coach and then fired him before the season started.
Fun times in Columbus.
It really is. And that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers for today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that subscribe button. Search PHLY wherever there are podcasts, and you will find us. Also, I searched hockey today, and we were one of the top.
Love that.
Top. So just
Thanks
search
so much,
hockey, and
everyone.
we're right up there with like 32 thoughts and all those top shows. So thank you all for your support, but keep supporting us. We could use it. So that's it for us. We will be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock again.
Yep.
So make sure you
After the first day of training camp.
After the first day of training camp.
I'll be there, so I'll be telling you guys what I saw.
That'll be it's must-see television, must-see YouTube, whatever you want to call it.
Truly is.
So tune in for that. My name is Bill Matz for Charlie O'Connor. Have a great week, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.